The storm raged outside as billionaire Alexander Hale stormed into his mansion, furious at the chaotic mess created by his maid, Elena. Pillows and sheets formed a wild fort, his twins giggling amid the disarray. "You're fired!" he bellowed, but the 4-year-olds tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, play with us. It's our castle for brave knights like you." Frozen, grief cracked, joy beckoned. The storm outside mirrored the one brewing in Alexander Hale's chest as he stepped through the grand oak doors of his waterfront mansion. Rain slicked his tailored suit, but it was nothing compared to the fury rising within him. The billionaire tech mogul, known for his ironclad control over boardrooms and billions, expected silence and order in his home, a sanctuary from the chaos of loss that had haunted him since his wife's passing 2 years ago. Instead, he was greeted by a battlefield of laughter and disarray that made his blood boil. The marble foyer, usually pristine, was streaked with flower footprints leading into the living room. Pillows from the imported Italian sofas formed makeshift walls, draped with bed sheets that billowed like sails in a gale. In the center of it all stood Elena Vargas, the 32-year-old maid he'd hired just months ago to maintain the household while he buried himself in work. She was on her knees, her dark hair tied back, directing the mayhem with a wooden spoon like a conductor's baton. And there, amid the fortress of cushions and scattered toys, were his 4-year-old twins, Mia and Max, their faces smeared with chocolate and glee. Alexander's jaw tightened. This wasn't cleaning. This was destruction. He'd given Elena clear instructions. Keep the house spotless, the children quiet, the routine unbreakable. Yet here she was, turning his home into a playground of pandemonium. "What the hell is this?" he thundered, his voice echoing off the high ceilings like thunder. The laughter stopped abruptly. Mia and Max froze, their wide eyes turning toward him. But Elena rose slowly, unflinching, wiping her hands on her apron with a calm that only fueled his rage. He advanced, ready to unleash the words that had been sharpening on his tongue all day. "You're fired," he spat, the decision final in his mind. The mess was unforgivable. Crumbs on the Persian rug, sticky handprints on the glass coffee table, a toppled vase spilling water like tears. This wasn't what he paid for. But before he could elaborate, the twins scrambled out from their fort, clutching half-eaten cookies like treasures. They toddled toward him, undeterred by his towering anger, and tugged at his sodden pants legs. "Daddy, play with us," Mia pleaded, her voice small but insistent, chocolate crumbs dotting her chin. Max nodded vigorously, holding up a pillow shield. "It's our castle, Daddy. Elena says it's for brave knights like you." Alexander halted, the fire in his chest flickering as their words sank in. Brave? Him? The man who'd built an empire but couldn't face the emptiness left by their mother's death? He knelt instinctively, his designer knees hitting the flour-dusted floor, and for the first time in years, the world paused. Elena's eyes met his, steady and knowing. "It's not just a mess, Mr. Hale. It's a way to remember joy." The twins beamed, oblivious to the storm he'd brought in, and repeated, "Play with us. Daddy, be on our side." Those simple words left him frozen, a crack forming in the armor he'd worn since the funeral. In that moment, amid the chaos he'd despised, Alexander felt something stir. A memory of laughter, of family, of life before grief had turned him cold. The rain outside pounded harder, but inside, a different kind of storm was breaking. 2 years earlier, Alexander Hale's world had shattered in a single phone call. Sophia, his vibrant wife and the heart of their family, had been taken in a car accident on a foggy coastal road. She was returning from a charity gala, her laughter still echoing in his voicemail from that morning. Alexander, then at the peak of his career, had thrown himself into work, acquiring companies and sealing deals as if mergers could mend his broken soul. The twins, barely 2 at the time, became shadows in his vast mansion, cared for by nannies who came and went, their presence a reminder of what he'd lost. He'd built walls around his grief, enforcing a regime of precision, meals at exact times, toys confined to designated bins, emotions tucked away like confidential files. The mansion, perched on cliffs overlooking the Pacific, was a fortress of glass and steel. Beautiful, but cold. Alexander believed structure would protect them all from further pain. "Control is safety," he'd tell himself during sleepless nights, staring at Sophia's untouched side of the bed. But the twins grew quieter, their once bubbly chatter fading into whispers, as if mirroring his silence. Elena Vargas entered their lives like a quiet revolution. Recommended by a colleague's wife, she arrived with a resume highlighting years of housekeeping for high-profile families. But it was her warm smile and gentle demeanor that caught Alexander's eye during the interview. "I don't just clean messes," she'd said softly. "I help families find their way through them." He hired her on the spot, desperate for stability, but with strict rules. No disruptions, no games, just order. Elena nodded, but her eyes held a spark he didn't notice then, a promise of change. At first, things went smoothly. Elena scrubbed the floors until they gleamed, organized the pantry with military precision, and ensured the twins' schedules ran like clockwork. Alexander barely saw her, leaving before dawn and returning late. But subtle shifts began. One evening, he found the twins giggling over finger paints in the sunroom, a room he'd deemed off-limits. "It's therapeutic," Elena explained calmly when confronted. "Helps them express what words can't." Alexander's temper flared, but the twins' colorful handprints on paper, labeled for Daddy, softened his rebuke to a warning. Tensions mounted as Elena's methods clashed with his rigidity. She introduced sensory play, rice bins for scooping, bubble baths with floating toys, claiming it built trust and emotional resilience. Alexander saw only chaos, spilled rice underfoot, water tracks on tiles. "This is a home, not a daycare," he'd snapped during one argument, his voice echoing in the empty halls. Elena met his gaze evenly. "A home needs heart, Mr. Hale. Without it, it's just walls." He dismissed her words, but they lingered, gnawing at the edges of his control. The twins, sensing the undercurrents, began to blossom under Elena's care. Mia, once shy and withdrawn, started babbling stories about imaginary friends. Max, who clung to his stuffed bear like a lifeline, ventured into new games with tentative smiles. Alexander noticed during rare dinners together, their eyes brighter, their hugs tighter. Yet he attributed it to time-healing wounds, not Elena's influence. Deep down, fear gripped him. If he let go of control, the pain of loss might swallow him whole again. One particularly grueling week, Alexander's company faced a hostile takeover bid. He worked 18-hour days, snapping at staff and isolating himself further. Returning home exhausted, he'd find traces of Elena's activities. A fort of chairs in the den, Play-Doh remnants on the counter. Each discovery fueled his resentment. "She's undermining me," he confided to his assistant over the phone. The maid was meant to maintain the status quo, not challenge it. By the time the stormy evening arrived, his patience had eroded to nothing, setting the stage for the confrontation that would change everything. Elena's presence became a quiet anchor for the twins amidst Alexander's absences. She sang lullabies in Spanish, her voice a soothing balm that coaxed them from nightmares of their mother's absence. "Mama watches from the stars," she'd whisper, pointing to the night sky through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The children clung to her, their small hands in hers during walks along the cliffside paths, where she'd teach them about seashells and tides, lessons in wonder that Alexander had forgotten. But the conflicts escalated. Alexander installed cameras to monitor the household, reviewing footage late at night. He saw Elena encouraging the twins to feel their feelings, letting them cry over spilled milk instead of scolding. "That's weakness," he muttered, deleting the clips. Yet one video stuck. Mia and Max building a block tower, Elena praising their efforts even as it toppled. Their laughter pierced his defenses, reminding him of Sophia's joyful chaos. Picnics in the living room, impromptu dance parties. He pushed the memory away, focusing on the mess left behind. As the takeover threat loomed, Alexander's stress manifested in sharper commands. "No more games," he ordered Elena one morning, his coffee untouched. She nodded, but her eyes held quiet defiance. That afternoon, while he was in a meeting, she let the twins bake simple cookies, a sensory activity disguised as a treat. Flour dusted the counters, chocolate chips scattered like confetti. It was meant to teach sharing and patience. But to Alexander, arriving early due to a canceled flight, it was the final straw. The rain-lashed drive home amplified his fury. "How dare she!" he seethed, gripping the steering wheel. Visions of firing her played out, clean, decisive, like closing a bad deal. But underlying the anger was fear. Fear of the joy she sparked, fear it would reopen wounds. As he burst through the door, the scene unfolded. The fort, the laughter, the mess. His shout silenced the room, but the twins' plea cut deeper, freezing him in a moment of raw vulnerability. In the hush that followed, Alexander's mind raced back to Sophia's last words. "Let them play, Alex. Life's too short for perfection." He hadn't listened then, and now, staring at his children's hopeful faces, regret crashed over him like the waves below the cliffs. The confrontation hung in the air like the scent of fresh-baked cookies mingling with rain. Alexander stood there, drenched and defiant, His finger pointed at Elena. "Pack your things," he growled, but the words tasted hollow. Mia and Max, sensing the shift, huddled closer to Elena, their small bodies a barrier of innocence. "No, Daddy," Max whimpered, clutching her apron. "Elena's our friend. She makes the sad go away." Mia nodded, tears welling. "Please, Daddy, don't make her leave. We built the castle for you. Those words, for you, pierced Alexander like a dagger." He glanced at the makeshift fort. Pillows stacked precariously, sheets tented over chairs, toys scattered as treasures. It wasn't destruction. It was creation, born from love. Elena stepped forward gently. "Mr. Hale, the mess is temporary. The memories last." Her voice was steady, laced with compassion that disarmed him. He wanted to argue, to reclaim control, but the twins' eyes, Sophia's eyes, held him captive. Kneeling to their level, Alexander's suit crinkled awkwardly. "Why for me?" he asked, voice cracking. Max beamed through tears. "Because you're the king, Daddy. Elena said kings need castles to feel safe." Mia added, "And we miss you. Play makes you come back." The simplicity shattered him. For months, he'd been a ghost in his own home, issuing orders from afar. Elena hadn't created chaos. She'd filled the void he'd left. As lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room, Alexander saw the truth. The mess was a bridge to healing, not a betrayal. He reached out, pulling the twins into a hug, flour transferring to his shirt. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words foreign on his tongue. Elena watched silently, her presence a quiet victory. For the first time, Alexander didn't clean up immediately. Instead, he joined the game, his laughter tentative but real, as the storm raged on. The turning point lingered into the night. After tucking the twins in, Alexander found Elena tidying the kitchen. "Why?" he asked simply. She paused, sponge in hand. "Because children heal through play, sir, and so do fathers." Her words echoed Sophia's philosophy, one he'd ignored in his grief. That night, he didn't fire her. Instead, he asked for her help, to teach him how to be present. It was the beginning of surrender, the crack widening into transformation. The days following were tentative, like footsteps on thin ice. Alexander canceled meetings, lingering at breakfast to watch Elena's routines. She introduced visual schedules, colored cards on the fridge depicting meal times, play, and naps. "Predictability builds security," she explained. The twins thrived, pointing to cards with pride. "Bath time," Mia would declare, and Alexander found himself smiling, joining in with bubble beards and splash wars. Challenges arose. A spilled juice incident tested his patience. But Elena's calm intervention, handing him a cloth with a nod, turned cleanup into a lesson. "Accidents happen," she said. "Responses matter." Alexander mopped without anger, the twins mimicking him. Slowly, the mansion warmed. Forts became weekend traditions, sensory bins a staple. He shared stories of Sophia, tears mixing with laughter, as Elena listened without judgment. Elena's backstory emerged in quiet conversations. A single mother who'd lost her husband young, she understood grief's grip. "I cleaned houses to survive," she confided one evening over tea, "but I stayed for the hearts." Alexander opened up about his fears, the empire he'd built as armor. "I'm afraid to feel," he admitted. She nodded. "Feeling is living." Their bond deepened, not romantic, but profound. A partnership in healing. Milestones marked progress. Max's first unprompted "I love you, Daddy" during a pillow fight. Mia's drawing of their family, including Elena as auntie. Alexander promoted work-life balance at his company, inspired by change at home. Storms still came. Grief waves on anniversaries, but they weathered them together, with forts and hugs. By month's end, the mansion pulsed with life. Alexander looked at Elena with gratitude. "You saved us," he said. She smiled. "You chose to let me." The family, once fractured, now stood united, proof that mess could mend. The transformation rippled outward. Alexander hosted a family barbecue, inviting colleagues who'd seen his cold facade. Laughter filled the air as twins chased guests. Elena orchestrating games with effortless grace. "This is home," he toasted, raising a glass. The evening ended with stories around a fire pit, Sophia's memory honored in warmth, not silence. Daily life evolved. Mornings began with shared breakfasts, Elena teaching simple recipes. Afternoons held adventures, beach walks collecting shells, symbolizing collected joys. Evenings were for reflection, journaling feelings as Elena suggested. The twins blossomed, their confidence blooming like cliffside flowers. A welfare check, prompted by a nosy neighbor's call about unusual activity, validated their growth. The inspector noted the loving environment, praising the balance of structure and play. Alexander beamed, crediting Elena. "She's family," he said simply. As seasons shifted, Alexander proposed a raise and permanent role. "Stay," he urged. Elena agreed, her own healing intertwined. The mansion, once a mausoleum, became a haven. In quiet moments, Alexander traced Sophia's photo, whispering thanks for the path that led to renewal. The story's heart lay in choosing vulnerability over control. What began as anger ended in love, a testament to small acts rebuilding lives. If this tale resonates, reflect. What mess in your life might hold hidden healing? Share below, like and subscribe for more stories of unexpected grace.